Today's networks are changing fast, and employees, devices, and infrastructures are more distributed than ever. Gigamon Threat Insight is a cloud-native, high-velocity network detection and response solution that's purpose-built to enable you to get in front of this transformation. Discover hidden network threats, automate security investigations, and optimize security workflows to stay a step ahead of attackers with Gigamon Threat Insight. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Gigamon. The hybrid workforce is here to stay, and it requires real-time visibility, control, and rapid response of every endpoint, whether it's in the office or home. Tanium offers an endpoint management and security platform built for the most demanding IT environments. Many of the world's largest and most sophisticated organizations, including nearly half of the Fortune 100, rely on Tanium to deliver unmatched endpoint visibility and control. Whether you're preparing for zero trust or protecting your network from supply chain risk, Tanium empowers technology leaders to achieve greater agility, efficiency, and confidence. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Tanium. Welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. InfoSec World 2021 is proud to announce its keynote lineup for this year's in-person event. Hear from Robert Herjavec, plus heads of security at the NFL, TikTok, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Stanford University, and more. Plus, Security Weekly listeners save 20% on the World Pass and main conference registration by visiting securityweekly.com/ISW 2021. Joining us for this segment is Deb Radcliff. Deb Radcliff was the first investigative reporter to make cybercrime beat in 1996 after researching a best-selling book about Kevin Mitnick called The Fugitive Game. Today, she joins us to discuss her newest release, Breaking Backbones: Information is Power. Deb, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Paul. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Deb. It is nice to have you here today. I want to ask, because in your bio you talked about covering Kevin Mitnick, and much has been written about that. And I find it interesting that a lot of the works that I read and when I talk to Kevin all give like slightly different angles on that. So was that like your first kind of foray into security?
Oh, yeah, it scared the boo-boo out of me. So I was a young mother with 3 little kids. And after I took the assignment from John Littman to work on a best-selling book about Kevin Mitnick on the run from the FBI, his friends found my unlisted phone number and started calling it and doing crazy things in the middle of the night. I had a reactive husband, so I had to pull the plug on all the phones. This was 1995. I called John Littman the next morning and said, I don't know if I can do this. I've got little kids, and those people came into my house last night. And so he called them and begged all of Mitnick's friends to leave me alone. I was a newbie at all of this, and I really was. It turned out his friends helped me get on the internet for the first time using a dial-up modem, trying to get through, I think it was Netscape. That didn't work. So I tried this new little service called America Online and paid long distance for it, even though I lived in a city of about 400,000 people. And then I just made it my beat from that point on. Some of the interesting things I learned about Kevin Mitnick at the time was he was being blamed for a lot of things that his friends did. I didn't like most of his friends. They were pretty scammy and they were exploitive of that relationship with Kevin. So I'm glad that he moved on. And got into KnowBe4 and does what he does now in the area of education around not just hacking, but social engineering, which is what he was best at.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's certainly an interesting story. It's interesting to hear everyone's different kind of perspectives and takes on it, because it's very deep. And I think a lot of people coming in the field today don't, unless they've read a lot of those works, don't understand the whole story. And I think it's one that they should.
I think the feds used him and Kevin Paulson as an example to try to, deter other people from hacking. But the problem was the feds, the judges that I saw in court, they didn't know what they were dealing with, and they were really scared. So they had both Kevins, I think, were in prison or jail for 4 years without a trial because no one knew how to try them. Today, their exploits seem minor compared to the stuff that real criminals are doing.
Yeah.
I consider them sort of the harbingers.
Oh, yeah, completely agree. So, Deb, what experiences have you been drawing on, other than what we just talked about, to write some of the books that you've been working on?
Oh, so much in this industry. So, as you know, there's a lot of hackers and hacker groups that started up in the 90s. We've got the Loft, we've got the Cult of the Dead Cow. There's many, many more. I used to go to their regular meetings, and I was there when Back Orifice was released, and I was there when polymorphism happened around antivirus, that made antivirus pretty much ineffective. So all those chilling moments were part of my career. And so there are people in my book that are based on Delchai, which is from another hacker group, the Hobbit, who's from the Loft. There is a representative from the Defense Department. Jim Christie is represented there in the DoD Forensics Labs. So these people have filled me in, clued me in, become characters over time in my head for this book that I wanted to show around the tech overreach. And in my mind, everybody's always afraid that it's going to be the government that really takes over our lives, but I've always felt that it was going to be private sector. So I made GlobeCom a private sector company that becomes a bit more powerful than government. And I worked with a lot of different characters that I met in my real life. I just translated them into fictional characters in the book. So Delchai is Mane, M-A-N-E, because he always reminded me of a lion. He had this red plaited hair that it looked like a lion's mane to me. And he always carried a lion head club, a cane, when he went places. And he was sort of the goth prince of New York. So I went to a goth party with him and learned a lot about the goth scene. In fact, there's some music in book number 2 that comes from his community that I'm using lyrics from for one of the chapters. So these, it was just really helpful. I learned the culture, not just what they stood for. And I was able to put all of that into my fiction series, Breaking Backbones. And the premise is GlobeCom owns pretty much the whole world through human chip implants. And of course, they've got the data centers and they own the network, which is basically the internet at this point, but it's a futuristic version. And the hackers, they see it coming. Some of them go off grid. Some of them take the chips and learn how to hack their own chips because now they're being 100% monitored and they want to do some things that they don't want people to know about. So they're hacking their own chips. Meanwhile, the ones off grid are mounting an attack against GlobeCom. It's, as you know, breaking the internet is pretty much impossible. So how are they going to take down GlobeCom, which is, very powerful data centers around the world, network infrastructure, and the chips?
Yeah. And I like this premise from the hacker viewpoint because, these storylines have appeared in many science fiction works, but I think many of them, almost all of them, have fallen short, really describing the tech and the kind of hacker culture. I don't know if you've seen The Feed. When you described it, it kind of reminded me of that Amazon show, The Feed, where everyone has the chip implant.
Oh, I might have seen that. I've seen others where they go too far with brain implants and other things. There's that one about the woman who's married to the guy right now on Showtime, and he's monitoring her through her chip, and he can see through her eyes and everything, and she's been trying to get away from him. What one is that called? Oh,
was that a Black Mirror episode?
No, it's a season.
I think it was that too. Yeah, but it's a show.
It's something like Till Death Do Us Part or something like that. But it's a dark comedy. So I watch it because it's poking fun at all of this. But mine doesn't go so far into the realm of future. It is really focused on current tech and how current tech can be used to take control of all of us. The one who got me thinking about the chip implants was Scott McNeely when he was Sun Microsystems, totally promoting chips for his dog. Why can't I chip my children? And I went home after that session with it was a press meeting with Scott McNeely in a small group. And I went home to my kids, and 8 years old, 9 years old, and 12 years old. And I said, would you guys let me put a chip implant in you if it made you safer? And they said, no, I'd cut it out of my skin. And I said, good, I raised my kids right anyway.
That's
so
really funny.
this is very interesting to me because I do have a chip in my hand.
Do you? Let me
So
see it. Does it show? Is there a bump?
Yeah. There's.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Okay. In the book, it happens right here. But yeah, and they wave it to buy groceries and scan things and they use it to get in their buildings and turn on their computers and start.
That's exactly what I use it for. Yeah. Well, for some of those things, not all those things. So I've got a high frequency NFC and low frequency RFID chip in it. And the low frequency RFID I use to get around my apartment complex. So to get in where the mailroom is and the Amazon locker, the doors to that, to the pool, to the clubhouse. I use my hand to open all those doors.
So what manufacturer made it for you? And like, how is it signaling to these devices? Is it going to a central location? Like in my book, that everything has to go back to data centers owned by GlobeCom for validation and verification.
Yeah. So, I mean, all RFID and NFC are, I mean, you can get little paper tags that have them in them. I mean, a lot of products that you buy just have them embedded in them. So there's no power source. Just a tiny amount of data can be stored on it, like 80 bytes to 160 bytes, sometimes a little bit more than that. But it's nothing more but, enough information to authenticate with something, or to just send a code. So that's it. You need an actual reader to power the thing up.
Okay. So that's how we have in the book, I have people who don't want the implants, but still need to buy things. They have like a piece of tape that they put on their wrist that it almost looks like a little piece of Braille tape with a tiny bit of circuitry in it to do the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, you could use a bit of just like aluminum tape or, anything that would shield a signal from going across, to block it. Sure.
Well, you're the beginning of the problem there. We're going to see these things get more powerful with more data, and someone's going to use them to control people eventually.
Yeah, so I would get 1,000 of these before I would put the Facebook app on my phone, for example. But like what's going on with the phones is a million times worse than anything you can do with the chip, especially if you've got full control over it. Because we don't have full control over our phones anymore.
And I think it's interesting that a lot of the distrust is with the government, air quotes, the government, whichever government in country you live in. But it's really, I think for me, my distrust starts with the big corporations, Deb. And I think you've hit on that nicely in the description of your book already, right? And that's where my distrust goes, is for the big companies. It's really government that could actually be poised to help preserve privacy if they did it correctly.
The government has a lot more rules to follow than corporate America. And corporations actually have more rights than individual humans on a general basis. So you put all that together and then give something like GlobeCom all this power, all this control, all the data, and see what happens. It's not.
And pay less taxes in many cases.
Yeah. Well, the ones living off grid in the book don't pay any taxes.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Are there lessons in the book, Deb, for enterprise security, or like lessons in general for security? Like, did you have like lessons in mind that you wanted the reader to take away? Yeah,
the takeaway really is more about privacy and personal privacy. Like you said, Facebook, iPhones, we've already pretty much given up everything about us. But what happens if that information starts being used against us? Right now it's ads and other things to try to get us to buy things. But what if it starts being used to control us, to, even put us in work camps if we're not behaving? That kind of stuff is happening in the book. It also is to tell the tale of what hackers and cybersecurity professionals are really dealing with. There is one chapter where CISOs actually come under fire. A couple of them are killed. This is in a power play when GlobeCom goes down and the regional entities start going after each other to grab more of what they think is going to be a new GlobeCom. All of that story carries into the second and third book in the series. because they do manage to destroy most of GlobeCom in book number 1.
And you are completed with book number 2? How much do you want to tell our audience about that?
Book 2 went out for review, and it got some pretty strong criticism on the first half. So I've been working on that pretty much as I can with another job and everything. And so it's very close to going to the publisher, but I want to send it out for one more review round first. So I'm guessing it'll probably be at the publisher by the end of September. My goal was to have it ready for the market during Christmas, but now it looks like, based on how long the publisher takes, probably more like late January.
Is that because there was more AI and machine learning, which is always a hotly debated topic?
Yes, I'm going farther into that. It's also because writing a sequel.
Yeah.
I tried to write for people who read the first book, and I showed it to people who did and who didn't read the first book. And it's sort of, I didn't spend enough time on the characters, of all things, in the first few chapters, because I figured everybody knew them. So it was more that kind of feedback I was getting. Why do I care about these characters? And just a little bit on the tech, but mostly about the characters. I do see this as a TV series, so I've really made the humanoids as interesting and real as I can without making any quote unquote Abbeys from NCIS. These people are real. They're people I know, and they are not stereotyped.
Mm. Yeah, it's funny in books. It's one of the things that, especially in serial novels, you get the most complaints about it. There's always this section that explains how the world works. Like if it's a book with magic in it, they have to explain how, what the rules are and set those, yep. And they reintroduce all the characters, just in case somebody, picks up a book in the middle of the series. And for big fans of the series, like the publisher makes you put it in there, so that people can just pick up anywhere in the series and understand what's going on. But for people like me who will read something from book 1 through book 18, it's kind of annoying. It's like, give me a button or like a reference so I can skip the section.
Yeah. So Stephen Northcutt's been my best reviewer. I don't know if you guys know him. He's was one of the founders of the Sands Institute.
Yeah, love Stephen. My career wouldn't be what it is today without Stephen.
Same here. I wonder how many people he's helped in this
You're right.
world.
We're not the only ones either. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. Also, there's a lot of messaging in there too around cars are getting hacked to kill people. And so there's a lot of message around just connected devices in there as well.
Yeah. And that's, a lot of what you've said already, Deb, is a reality today too, right?
Yeah.
It makes me wonder how much fiction is in your work versus, right. What is actually possible today.
And that's why I'm interested to read it. I found, so something as a security professional that I've always done, and partially it's an excuse to just buy gadgets because I love gadgets.
I can see that. I can see that from your hand gadget.
Yeah. I found the best way to figure out like what the issues are with these things is to actually use them, and putting something in my hand is as far as I've gone. I've never had a piercing or a tattoo, like it was a big jump for me. And I peppered the guy for a solid 2 hours with questions before having it done. But yeah, I find it's easy, to get scared of a thing like less logic, more emotions take over, because it goes in your body, and I find, after having it, I've had it for maybe a year and a half, 2 years now, I'm much more scared of what I don't know about that's going on my phone than this thing in my hand. Like you can't do anything with this unless you're right up on it, you've got to basically press something against it to interact with it versus, anybody anywhere in the world, ad companies are getting a constant stream of stuff from my phone. And I don't really know what they're getting, and how often they're getting it and how they're using it. So to me, that's a lot more scary.
Well, I imagine that there's going to be a lot more data on those chips going forward. But also in the book, I have people like you who are using the chip and experimenting on the chip in their own skin. Others are hacking other people's chips, because what would happen if I was a type 1 diabetic with a certain blood type who needed care, and I don't have a chip to go in and validate my identity. So those people have learned how to walk by very closely with a reader in their pocket and do a scan on other people's chips and determine which ones they want the data from. They're good at decrypting them and using that data to make fake chips for patients and try to practice take care of their medical needs as responsibly as they can without hurting the original patient. It's very tricky.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that stuff, I mean, there's diabetic patients with implants today. So it's very timely, because those are conversations we need to have. And none of the stuff, this thing in my hand isn't FDA approved. I had to sign all kinds of disclaimers to have it done. And there are people putting magnets in their hands, lights, all kinds of crazy stuff. Experimentation is going on right now.
Well, there are even all these neurolinks too. I'm very seriously thinking of bringing those up in book 3. Book 2 right now, I'm still reviewing and editing, but towards the end, some new characters are introduced, and they were actually sent by the AI, and they have brain links. And I'm thinking that in book 3, there's going to be brain to computing interaction that is going to be like nothing we've ever seen before. These people are already savants, and then they've got a brain implant. They've been sent by the AI to the development lab of the AI. So I want to see what's going to happen with that in book 3.
Yeah, what Elon Musk has done with Neuralink, I mean, not that he's really that directly involved in running the company, but when they shared some of what they had been working on, I was kind of shocked at how far along it was.
And then competitors are coming out of the woodwork for that too right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a company that I learned about years ago that had the sleep monitor, and it was like a device that was connected during sleep and monitored your sleep patterns. It was like almost like a neural interface. So that research has been going on for a long time, which is really
So imagine being able to do brain to computing development. That's where I'm thinking of taking book number 3.
Yeah, and that's fun stuff. There's a lot of that in. Have you read the Murderbot series, the Murderbot Diaries?
I haven't, but I'm writing that one down right now.
Oh, it's just like Adrian. It's a cyborg.
Yeah. So, I mean, the main character is a high anxiety, just kind of introvert android, not human. And it's so funny because, it's almost like the series started as a dare. Somebody said, see if you can make an android or, a robot more relatable than the actual humans in the story. And that's kind of what everything's based on. They did
that. Yep.
Wow.
And it's hilarious. But it also has action, also has sci-fi. And in that world, it's fairly normal for humans to be augmented. And they do have a thing that they call the feed, and they can basically tap into these networks and interact with it. Without using an interface, just
there you go.
Thinking through it. So that's a really fun read if you want to dive into.
I will.
What some other folks have done.
Number 3. By the way, here's a picture of my book. I love the cover because it shows GlobeCom going down, and that's how I envisioned the GlobeCom logo to look when I told the artist. So I'm pretty proud of the way the cover looks too.
Yeah, it's good. I like the cover.
It's really awesome, Deb. Anything else you want to share with our audience about your book and upcoming books?
Buy them, help me get them on TV. If you know producers, please introduce me. It's all a game about who you know when it comes to Hollywood. So I do see this as a Netflix series. So I've got 3 scripts written off the first book already. So that would help a lot. If you guys know anybody who's a producer, send them my way.
Outstanding. Deb, thanks so much for appearing on Enterprise Security Weekly.
Thank you.
Make sure you check out the book, Breaking Backbones, Information is Power. Coming up next, the Enterprise Security News. Stay tuned.